Hey guys, this is Tony Paradis. I'm a licensed dietitian and personal trainer with Food and Fitness. You can check out our website, Food and Fitness Online, and I'll link that down below. Today I'm here with Master Guy of American Youn Law. We're going to ask him some questions about what Youn Law is, martial arts, how that can benefit you, and you're going to have a chance just to kind of meet him and understand a little bit more about what he does. So first of all, thank you very much for taking the time to be here today.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate that. So let's get started right off the bat. Guy, what are your qualifications as an instructor?
Well, qualifications as an instructor for myself, because I'm at the master's level, is more of a longevity type thing. I started in martial arts when I was 18, 19 years old when I was in college. And then I became an actual instructor in the art of Youn Law back in, I think it was 1997 or 98.
Okay.
So I've been an instructor at least that long, certified for that long. And I've been teaching now actively pretty much now for about 16 to 17 years.
Okay, so you started off martial arts when you're about 19 years old, 16 years. He's got a lot of experience under his black belt. All right, so you talked about training in Youn Law. Is that how you started off?
No, actually I started off in, it was a form of Taekwondo.
Okay.
My first instructor was back in college when I lived in New Jersey. And he was actually a U.S. Olympian.
Oh.
And unfortunately, he didn't get to go to the Olympics, but it wasn't in Taekwondo. It was in another form of martial arts. And he was on the U.S. Judo team. And so he taught Taekwondo at our college. He was not a professor. He was just an instructor.
Okay.
And so that's where I started. And a friend of mine talked me into it and said, hey, how'd you like to go take a martial arts class for PE? And I said, hey, that'd be great.
It's funny how things get started. Well, tell us a little bit about the art of Youn Law and how that differs from other martial arts.
Youn Law is unique in the martial arts field simply because it's not just one art. We start out with basic Taekwondo from white to black belt, and then as we move forward, we start teaching what we call Youn Law. Ironically, even though martial arts is traditionally a male-oriented activity, the Youn Law name is actually a Korean woman's name.
Oh.
And without going into a deep background into the history behind it, Youn Law for our organization is simply meant that it is it's complementative in that it has a lot of different martial arts involved in it, not just the Taekwondo, but also Hwando, Hapkido, Jiu-Jitsu, and a lot of other different arts that we combine into one. And now you don't start out in that; you start out in basic Taekwondo, and as you move forward, you start adding those different practices.
You master the Taekwondo. Once you get up to black belt, now we start.
The Youn Law starts in fairly early for the adults. For the kids, it starts at 14 years old. We start learning unique self-defense techniques. In our school, because I'm also belted in what's called Kali Eskrima, or single stick, double stick. It's also Dan Inosanto, Master Inosanto, who started with Bruce Lee way back in the 60s.
You guys may know that name.
Who actually his real name was Jun Fan. Not a lot of people know that, but his name was Jun Fan. It was Bruce Lee for the movies.
For the movies.
But Master Inosanto, who my instructor in Kali Eskrima, otherwise known as Jun Fan, was also one of the people that I took martial arts from. And so I incorporate those things into our school. And the uniqueness about that is it fits in very well with the way that our art exists and the inclusion that we have.
Very interesting. Let's talk a little about, coming back to you a little bit.
Okay.
Guy, can you tell us about your personal achievements in martial arts?
Well, I think the idea that I've become a master is probably the biggest achievement.
Yeah, certainly.
Getting to that level is probably commensurate with somebody who's either attained a master's or a doctorate in traditional education, because it takes a great deal of time, a great deal of practice, and without being gross, a lot of blood and sweat.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort, and in reality, what you put in is what you get out of it.
Yeah.
So in anything
like
that you do, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And so that the practice in being able to get to the master's level, I think, is probably the single biggest achievement. A lot of people have a lot of trophies in their schools. A lot of people have done a lot of tournaments. I've done tournaments, and I think the biggest achievement for me is probably attaining the rank of master.
Master, and you have a what degree in your black belt?
Well, I'm a fifth degree.
Fifth degree black belt.
Fifth degree black belt. And then at some point here, within the next 6 to 9 months, I'll test for my sixth degree.
Okay.
Which, again, when you get to that level, your testings are far and few between because the belt levels are much more spread out.
Okay.
And your technical experience, obviously, over a period of time increases. The amount of material that you learn is more in the subtleties,
Okay.
in being able to practice it in different ways and taking what you learn and apply it in a different situation.
Okay, so you've been all across the board, trained in many different martial arts, and being a master, I mean, that's one of the most significant achievements that anybody in martial arts can achieve.
I would say so.
Coming back to kind of your earlier days, what got you interested in teaching? I mean, from going from, this is something for me, to something I want to share.
Well, I think for anybody that's been in martial arts the length of time that I've been in it, and anybody that's been involved in it for that length of time, they want to share it not only in a way of teaching other people, but they want to be able to have the art that they helped create continue. And actually, what's funny is you asked that question. We had this discussion the other night where I said to a lot of my younger belts, I said, look, it's really important for you to understand that when you learn something, it's not just learning it for yourself, it's to help somebody else then get better at what they do, and also passing on what you have. And if you don't pass it on, it dies.
Yeah.
And so, like, in anything that we do, whether it be education, whether it be in sports, if we don't pass on that expertise, then expertise dies.
Okay. Very important to keep that idea, that meme, spreading and generating. And if Guy wasn't teaching it today, you know, who's going to pick up after him? There aren't a lot of masters, I'm guessing, because it takes so long to get to that level.
There are, in our group, there is a certain group because we all kind of started at the same time.
Okay.
And so within our group, there's 5 to 6 masters, and a lot of us are school owners. In fact, the majority of us are school owners. There are a lot of masters that are out there that what they do is they do several different things. They go teach at a school where the school employs them as the school's master, or what they do is officiate at testing. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're a school owner,
Okay.
but there are a large number of school owners that are also masters, but there are also a lot of school owners that are not. I think that in today's environment where it's really important for our martial arts schools to be well run, it's also important for our martial arts schools to be well educated in martial arts. And that's the one unfortunate part that I see lacking. You don't see a lot of schools that have high-ranking belts that are running them.
So they have strong business and maybe need to work a little more on
More on the technical side. Some of the more experienced black belts, unfortunately, are a lot older now. The master that I trained under is nearly 80, and so a lot of his peers are about the same age, and so that group is passing on, and so they're in essence passing the mantle to those of us that they trained, and it's a very difficult thing to maintain throughout your life. Obviously, there's a lot of physical activity involved. There's a lot of injury that can occur over the period of time, not necessarily in martial arts, but to your body in general as you age. And so it becomes more and more difficult the older you get, because the requirements of teaching, while they're not as great as practicing, they're certainly in being able to demonstrate.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
It's definitely up there. I mean, even as a personal trainer, just showing movements to my clients, by the end of the day, you're toast sometimes.
Yep, you're worn out, and you can get worn out quite quickly when you're doing it 6-10 times in a day, and you're teaching 3 and 4 hours a day.
Wow. Let's switch gears a little bit. What are some benefits for children training in Youn Law, and compare that to what are some of the benefits for some adults? So if you guys are watching, maybe want to get your kids involved in American Youn Law, or maybe even yourself, you can explain a little bit about that.
It's interesting. The idea of martial arts, obviously, is by virtue of the term martial arts, was study of military tactics.
Yeah.
And so now when you bring it forward, we don't have the need for teaching people how to defend themselves simply because we have a law enforcement. We have a society that's much more well organized and regulated. So,
hopefully.
Usually, yes. Well, that most definitely. But there's a lot of things within martial arts that especially for the kids, that helps them self-discipline,
Yeah, and
So-
that's why I got into it when I was a kid.
And that is one of the biggest things. When I get parents that come in, the first thing they say is well, my son or daughter needs to learn more self-discipline. And you know what? They're for our part, they're children,
Yeah.
and all kids can learn self-discipline.
Yeah.
The problem is where it comes from. In today's society, what we see is most parents, they put their kids in organized sports. They are involved in some school activities, and maybe some activities outside of school, whether it be church, whether it be Cub Scouts, whether it be Girl Scouts, and those are really
a lot going on.
There is, and those are the traditional ways. Unfortunately, those avenues don't teach you the things that we really need to become good adults.
Yeah.
They don't teach you the self-discipline. They don't teach you the self-empowerment that you need and what you get as a martial artist, because it's about you. It's not about the team. It's about your performance. And so essentially what you're learning is to be able to rely on yourself. And really in the end, that's what we have to do, is to be able to rely on one another. Now, everybody talks about teamwork. In martial arts, you learn teamwork, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Because when you're working with another person as an instructor, that is a team. And that team is that you're trying to transfer your skill to them. So when it comes to kids, they get the leadership skill, self-empowerment, self-confidence, and
That's a big one.
especially for the girls, because in today's society there's a lot of pressure on young girls, and the self-confidence that they gain because, hey, they're the one doing it. They go to a tournament, they're the one that wins the trophy.
Yeah.
They go through testing, they're the one standing out front of the floor with maybe 100 other people watching them, and they do their forms, their kicks, their self-defense, and it's all on them.
Yeah.
And so that's where we see the big benefit. Whether it's an organized sport, they're just one of 9 kids on a baseball team, or whatever it might be. Let's push it up to adults.
Yeah.
The adults obviously have some things going for them that the kids don't. Obviously maturity, and also the ability to be able to take the instruction that we give and then being able to actually do whatever it is we're asking them, and they understand it. Kids don't, and sometimes that's it's not a hurdle. It's just part of it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes adults start off with a little bit of hurdle too. So.
Well, the adults, when they start off, it's there's a big difference. I have people that they're in their 20s all the way. I had a gentleman not long ago who's in his late 50s, and he said, "Can I do martial arts?" And I said, "Well, of course you can." I said, "Why can't you?" And he said, "Well, I'm not really in that great shape. I've got some injuries." I said, "Look, it's not about that.
Yeah.
As an adult, you're going to get out what you put in." And so on our end as instructors, what we do is we say, look, I'm not expecting you to do the highest kicks. I'm not expecting you to go the fastest or punch the hardest. But the practice of it will really help your health. It will help your overall ability to be able to maintain your weight. It'll help your muscle skeletal structure. It will help you because it's a great place, believe it or not, for stress relief. Punching a bag is really great stress relief.
Yeah.
All of us would like to go and do that, and so now the adults get to go out and take their frustration and their anger out on a bag. And all of us deal with stress throughout our lives, and that martial arts is a real good stress reliever. It's very focused, and it really is. It's one thing that I think a lot of more adults could probably benefit from. What I see today is a lot of adults deal with an enormous amount of stress, and most of it's placed on themselves.
Yeah, and sometimes they deal with it in unhealthy ways. I mean, as a dietitian, usually it's eating, stress eating, drinking, those sorts of things that may be helping with the stress in a temporary way, but long term and as far as health goes, you got to find some other way to do that.
And exercise in general, no matter what it is a real good way to deal with that. Martial arts, you have both the anaerobic and the aerobic exercise going for you. And that's a really good plus. I mean, you have a lot of people that are just pure runners. You have people that do just weightlifting.
So for those of you guys watching at home, these are exercises that are going to benefit both your muscles, your strength, but also your endurance and your cardiovascular. So you get kind of the full circle with things like that, which should be part of any workout program, but doesn't always happen.
No, and the good thing about martial arts is that you do it at your own pace. I've had women that were in their early 40s, coming up on 50, and I'm not the most athletic person in the world. I can't do this, I can't do that. I said, okay, that's fine. But what we're going to do is we're going to take it one step at a time, and we're going to show you the things that you can do now. and then down the road, I guarantee you that the things that you can't do now, you'll be able to do. And it's a matter of actually what I like to call the fear factor. People are always fearful of what they don't know. And so they come into something that they're a little bit fearful, and I always tell them, look, you have to be able to become uncomfortable with the things that you're fearful.
How are you going to grow otherwise?
That's right. And what's odd about that is that what I see is then those people that were fearful of one thing, all of a sudden it doesn't bother them at all anymore. And kids are really interesting because as they grow and mature, you get to see that. With adults, it's a little bit different because all of a sudden it's not something they talked about, but you knew they were fearful of it because you look at them and they can't do this kick or that kick. And then all of a sudden they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it. And then you go, hey, you know what? You can do that kick now. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right.
So let me kind of try to make sure I got this. For the kids, it's going to be self-discipline. It's going to be structure. And, a big thing I see is really teaching them the power of how to use their physical body, but also using it in a respectful way. So that individuality of having responsibility as well as the team effort that comes into that. There's some benefits you can see from the kids, from the adult. Maybe you guys may be starting off with injuries or not being in the best shape and having that fear factor of, is it too late to get started? And you're going to see all those things benefit, and all sorts of systems in your body are going to benefit from it, from your heart, from your muscles, and all that kind of stuff. You kind of got into my next question a little bit, is what some things people should consider before starting martial arts. You talked about injury. You talked about kind of having a fear factor. Is there anything else that you guys at home may need to consider before you sign up for a program?
I think like anything else, when you do it, first thing you want to do is make sure that you're physically healthy enough. Whether it be a child or whether it be an adult. I have kids that come in that have different medical issues, whether it be diabetes, ADHD, autism, certain allergies. And so the big thing is to make sure that you check with your doctor to make sure that you're physically healthy enough. The next thing you want to do is shop around. Not every martial art school out there is it may not be right for you.
Sure.
It might be a school that's very, very physically oriented. In other words, they're just they go to tournaments all the time.
Yeah.
And so that goal may be different than what your goal is, and it also may be different than what you want your child involved in. So you need to go to a school that suits you, whether you be a child or an adult. When you're looking at a martial arts school for your child, you want to make sure of two things. One, that school is going to be appropriate. And when I say that, what we see in the martial arts industry is you have kind of a large variance of different schools. You have ones that concentrate solely on doing tournaments. So they're not really teaching a lot in the way of discipline. What they're doing is they're just teaching kids how to win or lose. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, but I think if you really want to take full advantage of what martial arts have to offer, you need to be able to go to that direction. The next thing is look at your instructors. We, as an organization, we have all of our credentials posted. They're certainly welcome to call anybody that they like who I've been a student of. And so that's a really good thing, too, because I think that, unfortunately, nowadays, parents don't put stock in the person that's giving their child instruction, whether it be a football coach, a basketball coach, a baseball coach, soccer.
There's great coaches, there's terrible coaches.
That's true, and you see that every once in a while where you find somebody else who wants to win and they want to take their personal goals and impart them on somebody else, but in a bad way.
Football coaches, I hope you're watching this.
And hockey. Some of the soccer ones I've seen. You soccer moms, you're out there. You guys got to be careful. No, and
yeah, all kidding aside.
All kidding aside, I mean, in reality, the physical activity is always great.
Yeah.
And I think that so when somebody's looking for a martial arts school, talk to the instructors. Come in and watch a class, and not just one. Watch a couple different classes, and then ask them. Talk to them about their philosophy. I have parents that come in, and honestly, I've spent 2 hours with them, talking to them in depth about what we teach, about the benefits of martial arts, about who we are, what we do, about our credentials, about the things that we're going to teach the kids. And it's funny, I had one parent one time when I said that I taught weapons, and she got upset. She said, "Well, you really teach with real weapons?" And I said,